Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a big Winnipeg Jets victory over the Tampa Bay Lightning. One of the more impressive games I've seen from the Jets, not just as of late, but this year. 8 points out of their last 10 possible points in 5 straight games coming out of the break. One thing that was good to see was the Winnipeg Jets holding out a couple players out of the lineup with the intention to trade them in spite of the late push. Thought in the past, the Winnipeg Jets, a team that, can get into that kind of thing where they, don't pay attention to the numbers and they start saying, okay, we've seen enough from this team. They're ready for a push. Like you gotta follow the numbers. You know what I mean? That's your job. You got to do those things. But that said, interesting to see the Winnipeg Jets and the way they're going here. Let's hop into let's make it a new Toyota. Let's make it a Toyota Tundra or something. Yeah, let's make it a Toyota Tundra. Hop in the Toyota Tundra and let's go off-roading while we have this conversation. Very interesting game here tonight. So if you notice, that game starts out as a low event kind of game, and it's more along the lines of what we've been talking about. And if you remember the last show that we did, that was to me just like a grind fest. And you've heard me talking about it, the games that come out of the break, what we can expect, just this low event kind of hockey, which I've thought has been hard to watch. This game tonight wasn't hard to watch, and this is why. The Winnipeg Jets have taken kind of that low event hockey, that little bit of a grind, and they found a way to add a little bit of offensive upside to it, right? We saw it in the third period of their game against the Chicago Blackhawks. A lot of times you can look at that, think it's score effects, think it's the Chicago Blackhawks sitting on the lead and kind of trying to sit back and just survive that game, except the Winnipeg Jets keep it rolling in this game here tonight. And it gets me thinking about one thing in particular. The Winnipeg Jets, and it is really quite remarkable. If you rewind and go look at that President's Trophy winning season, the most remarkable thing about that season is, and I guess this would probably be true of most President's Trophy winners, but is the stamina to keep that level of game where you keep it up, right? Like we're seeing it from the Colorado Avalanche this year. That one year, the Boston Bruins, who ended up losing in the first round to the Florida Panthers. Just the level that they were at from night to night. And what this reminded me of is what we saw over and over again from the Winnipeg Jets last year that, you wouldn't think is sustainable because it's so kind of hard to do. But the Winnipeg Jets did it for a long stretch last year, for most of last year. So maybe they can do it down the stretch for the last 20 to 25 games of the year. But here's the deal. Coming out of the break, I think there's opportunity for the people who want to capitalize on that opportunity. And that opportunity exists in the idea that you see a team like the Nashville Predators, who are above the Winnipeg Jets, selling off majorly here tonight. A team like Chicago, and I think you saw it a little bit in their game. A team like Vancouver, who they played in their first game out of the break. But then also on the other end of the scale, teams like the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have now, I think, lost 3 games. And we'll get into that a little bit. But some of the upper end teams, like I think we saw Colorado kind of stumble a little bit. There's opportunity here because I think coming out of the break, the teams with low motivation are the ones right at the very top who kind of feel like they're sitting pretty. And the ones who are really low, who are thinking, okay, what are we starting up again for? We're not making the playoffs. This isn't happening. And what the Winnipeg Jets have done is they've found the motivation that a lot of those other teams haven't found. And how they've used it is how they used it last year. And here's what it looks like. You'll notice that first period was a low event for Tampa. And the Jets were just kind of trying to grind them down. And what the Winnipeg Jets did last year that they've been doing, I think, in the last number of games is this. If you're going to win this game, if you're walking in and you're playing us, the Winnipeg Jets, you are going to have to fight for this game. It is going to be a grind. We are going to grind you. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be wide open. We are just going to keep this low event and grind and grind and grind. And if you're not willing to grind, which the Tampa Bay Lightning weren't on this night, it's going to turn ugly for you. And that is going to turn into offense at some point. And I think the Winnipeg Jets have just done a really, really good job of being that team that they were last year, saying we are going to just beat teams on some nights because they're going to come rolling into our building and we're going to say, you willing to grind? And if they're like, yeah, not really, then the Jets say, then we're going to take this game tonight. And I think we saw that tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning team that in talking, if you all remember Dave Randorf, I used to call games with Dorf when he was working with Sportsnet. He used to be on the TSN CFL panel for all those years. He now calls games lives down in Tampa Bay. And he'd said to me coming into this game, he said, we really don't know who's going to show up. One of two teams is going to show up for Tampa Bay. The team that won, I think it was something like 20 of 21 games or something like that. That was just razor sharp, really defensively responsible, kind of all in there. Or this team that is like kind of not very committed to defense, kind of trying to find easy paths through things. And that's the team that showed up on this night. And the Jets, I mean, give the Jets credit. They capitalized on it, but also they forced those mistakes. How many times did you see cutback plays by the Lightning where they turned and just threw the puck where they thought a guy was going to be, but the Jets were breaking it up with their sticks. And when they broke it up, they were turning it up the ice the other way, creating odd man rushes, capitalizing on those odd man rushes. The Winnipeg Jets absolutely ate up the Tampa Bay Lightning on this night. And they did it because the Winnipeg Jets said to the Tampa Bay Lightning, are you willing to play the right way? Are you willing to grind? Are you willing to get into a street fight? Because that's where we're going to play this game, down in the gutter. And unless you're willing to get down in the gutter with us and get dirty, you're not going to win this game. And it was the best example of it I've seen from the Winnipeg Jets. So the one thing that fascinated me was how fast the Jets played on this night. That third period that they played against Chicago, where they looked like they were just rolling and the Chicago Blackhawks looked like they were standing still. Tampa Bay didn't look like they were standing still, but the Winnipeg Jets were fast. They were fast in their own end. They were fast when they transitioned the puck and took it up ice. They were fast on the forecheck. This, to me, is the fastest that I have seen the Winnipeg Jets play maybe for the entirety of the season. They played faster tonight than I thought that they could actually play. But the beauty of it is they played that speed under a very structured, very suffocating defensive system that really set them up for success tonight. I've got a keg save of the game for Connor Hellebuck in my back pocket that I'm going to go with, but I didn't think he was overly challenged on this night because I just thought the Jets were just so good at protecting home plate, keeping the plays to the outside, and just really killing things before they started. This was, for me, one of the more impressive games we've seen from the Winnipeg Jets this year. Had they found this kind of game and been able to maintain it for the entirety of the season, they would have been a playoff team, no doubt. They would have potentially been an upper echelon team. The question would be, could they maintain that? It's crazy that they did it last year. It's crazy when any team does that, works the way the Winnipeg Jets did tonight, and then strings it together for close to 82 games. That said, the Winnipeg Jets, who have not given up on the idea of the playoffs, not like Renny has, but the Jets who haven't given up on the idea of the playoffs, playing this style of play and playing it consistently for the next 21 games, I don't think it's going to happen, but this would be the best way of giving themselves an opportunity. I didn't like the let's win the game 0-0 and not try to add offense to it. The Jets have locked down that defensive game over the last 5 games. Now they're starting to add a little bit of offensive flair to it. Let's see where they go from here. That is my take on the whole thing. And that is your Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive. And hey, finding the right vehicle. It can feel like a big decision, but the team at Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent make it easy. They'll help you find the perfect fit from their wide selection of new and pre-owned Toyotas, all backed by great service and honest advice. So if you're ready for something new, stop by Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent or start your search online at jptoyotaregent.com. And make sure you tell them Kenny and Renny sent you when you get down there. Okay, time to bring in the man with the best music in the business, folks, for his take on the whole thing. Here comes Kenny.
You're muted.
That is what a bug in the system that it turns off.
We got a couple glitches. Yes.
On. I don't know. You're looking good, Ken.
You sounded good.
I wanted to say this. It's nice to be sounding good finally. I wanted to say I took the audience for the Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive in the 2026 Tundra because that's the vehicle that they're highlighting this month. Strong, capable, powerful. The 2026 Tundra is the perfect blend of rugged and sophisticated, ready to take you on any adventure. This month, finance the 2026 Tundra from 4.79% plus. Eligible loyalty customers receive a 1% rate reduction. But hurry, the offer ends March 31st. Visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today. Ken, I thought that was a heck of a game by the Winnipeg Jets against the team that somewhat struggled coming in here. You've got a choice. You can be the team that allows that team to bounce back, or you can be the team that holds them down. The Jets did a good job of holding down the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight.
Yeah, no doubt. And just quickly, good job on the tap dancing front, Sean. This will be one of those shows where we could have breaking news. There are reports out there, including the first one from Chad D. Demonicus about the Jets potentially moving both Logan Stanley and Luke Schenn to the Buffalo Sabres. So doing our best to be as prepared for that as possible. And we'll follow that as we get more news here once there is confirmation, pending trade call and all those things. But yeah, in terms of the game, I mean, Scott O'Neill said it himself. I mean, this is one of the best games the Jets have played this year. And Sean, to your point, I mean, if this was happening in games, 25 to 50 rather than in, games 60, 61,
yeah, we'd
probably have totally different conversation, right? I mean, this is part of the reason, and again, it's 2020 vision, but this is one of the reasons why the Jets management team believed that an aging roster could play fast enough to be competitive. At a time when the games are at their fastest, a veteran group is looking like it can skate with a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning. But
do you think games are at their fastest right now?
Well, maybe not quite at their fastest, but I mean, certainly we know that generally speaking, the games, games 60 to 82 are tougher than the 25 to 40. But I agree with you, Sean. And I think that you have
the rules are thrown out a little bit coming out of the
Olympic year,
Olympic break. Yeah, I touched.
I'm just saying that the Tampa Bay Lightning are a fast team. They didn't play that fast today. I agree, but I mean, the Tampa Bay Lightning sure made the Jets look slow in the game before the break. So
yes,
I mean,
yes,
their ability to turn the tables, I think, is certainly worthy of stick taps or whatever you want to say. I mean, it's impressive to see. I mean, I also had a chance to talk with John Cooper before the game with Kevin Sawyer and Julie Stewart-Binks, and John was saying that the team has come up flat out of the break, which is frustrating for a coach for sure. And I think we saw some of that frustration involved today during the game. And I think he shared the same sentiment in the post game reaction from what I was seeing. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the Jets, like this is the template. I mean, excellent goaltending, uh, primary scorers on fire, and secondary scoring happening. I mean, it's what every team wants. It's the formula the Lightning have used to get to the top of the Eastern Conference.
It was
But
the Jets' formula last season. Their
exactly,
game tonight was the formula that won for them last season.
100%. I mean, and they showed they can do it, but they just haven't done it enough times, Sean, which is what we've been harping on all season long. Sort of, you don't want to sound like a broken record, but I mean that's the reality. I mean, if there were more efforts like this, the Jets wouldn't be 7 points out of the playoff spot in the Western Conference. So, impressive job by a team that had to sort of refocus on the fly. I mentioned the potential trade, to the Sabres. I mean, Scott O'Neill told us in the morning, and Sean, I mean, I don't feel like Scott O'Neill was sort of trying to pull the wool over our eyes by saying he didn't expect anyone to be held out for roster management purposes. But, over the course of the day, he did say there was a chance that could change. And lo and behold, it did change when the warm up, was transpiring and happening. Logan Stanley and Luke Schenn were not out on the ice, and they were replaced by Ville Heinola and Isaac Phillips. So, that sort of is the first indication that they were moving along the line. Which again leads us to, Sean, we're trying to follow the breadcrumbs as best we can. So what that tells you and I is that the negotiations this week with with Logan Stanley and his camp and the Winnipeg Jets didn't get close enough to a point where they thought they could sign him to an extension. And as we've been saying for at least a month of time, if you can't sign Stanley to an extension, you must move Logan Stanley. And, all signs pointing towards that being the case. We expected a team to add Luke Schenn for the same reasons the Jets added Luke Schenn, Sean. And does it surprise you or I that a team adding Luke Schenn hasn't been to the playoffs since 2010? Of course it doesn't. I mean, this is a team that hasn't been to the playoffs since the Jets have been back in the league in the 2.0 edition. So it makes sense to me that they would be adding big, strong, physical guys. And again, I'm not going to take this as an original idea for myself, Sean, but I saw on the old Twitter machine today, and it was a subtle reminder that folks in this market should be very aware of. Mark Bergevin is the assistant GM with the Buffalo Sabres, and the blue line they put together when they knocked the Jets out of the playoffs was filled with big, strong defensemen. Of course, there's skill. The Buffalo Sabres have lots of skill. They've even got size, but they don't have a ton of rugged defensemen that play a physical style, that can kill penalties, all of those things. There's some insulation for the skilled guys like Bowen Byram, like Rasmus Dahlin, who has emerged as a legit Norris candidate this year, Sean. Owen Powers there, right? I mean, big, strong guy, but he's not an overly physical guy. So, Luke Schenn probably looks like a depth guy number 7 coming in right now. Just looking at their depth chart, Logan Stanley probably slides in on the third pairing with Michael Kesselring. And I mean, that's a team that's adding depth. So, again, we'll get into it more once things are official. But yeah, I mean, those things make sense to me.
You know what? It's probably going to be dead within minutes here, the way things are rolling. But okay, so the announcement on Colton Parayko when they were trying to pick up Colton Parayko was, I believe, Owen Power and a first going back the other way.
No, not Power. No, Power was not in the
Power. Deal. Okay, all right.
No, it was a prospect.
So are we thinking a similar return, especially throwing Schenn in there? Are you thinking a first round pick return?
It's tough, Sean. The thing with Parayko is that he had term. So I think that's why it maybe got to a first. Again, if the Jets end up getting a first from Buffalo, I mean, that's great work by Kevin Cheveldayoff. The interesting part, Sean, that the Sabres don't have a second in this year's draft from looking at Puckpedia. So, maybe there's a second for next year. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, we're going to have to wait and see. There hasn't been anything on the potential return yet. And another player that makes some sense to me, Sean, we've been talking for a long time about NHL ready players or NHL players. I mean, what about former Winnipeg Ice captain Peyton Krebs? I mean, he's a guy that could be a fourth line guy for sure, maybe third line guy moving forward as a potential guy on the return. He's been a guy that is, there's been issues with getting longer term contracts, ice time, sort of some of those things. So a guy like that would make sense to me.
Yeah. Just a couple things I wanted to get in here. First of all, Alex is dead right when he says Kenny looks sharp with the blue shirt and tie. Of course he does. He went down, talked to the boys, got done up right by the boys. You got to do yourself the same if you want guys like Alex 99 complimenting you, buttering you up the way he's buttering up Kenny here. Head on down to Corden Avenue. Walk in to Vittorio Rossi, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. I also wanted to bring up this comment by Terry Trey, who says, muted, just like the Lightning offense on this day. A
Well played.
Sick burn, as my kids would say, by Terry Trey on me and my I don't know what bad software to have that happen. Anyways, that's worth the Flame and Comfort comment of the game, hot take of the game. It's just, if you say something that's notable, it makes it as a hot take, good or bad. If it's notable, it's going to make it in there as the hot take, just like that did. Brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street. When you get there, you will find it is one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada, folks. So you don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside. Visit Flame and Comfort, and it will be taken care of for you. Okay, we'll probably be bouncing back to the trade talk here at some point, but let's get to the game tonight. And I'm going to ask it this way. What was the biggest standout for you tonight? The play of the top line outplaying the Stars of the Tampa Bay Lightning, or the depth by the Winnipeg Jets on this night?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, Sean, and I'm going to use it this way. I mean, I think the easy answer would be Scheifele, but I think because the Scheifele line has been the most consistent line for the Jets this year, I think we have to say the secondary scoring, because that's the piece that's been missing for so many of these games here for the Winnipeg Jets, and probably the biggest reason they are in the predicament that they are in. So yeah, I mean, we talked about the formula and the template before. I mean, you get a first line goal, so you get a fourth line goal from Morgan Barron. Shot pass off the pad. You know, Vasilevsky looks tough to beat. Bang, bang. There it is. Off the pad. Barron's there. Bangs it home. Scheifele, one-timer. Turnover by Radish. I mean, rare play for Radish. Leads to a goal later on. Late goal for the Jets. Scheifele scoring in the last minute. That sort of gave them some breathing room. And then, hey, we've talked about this a ton this year. Gustav Nyquist, being snake bitten, not getting going offensively the way that he wanted to be, the way the Jets wanted him to be, the way they envisioned him playing a big role with Jonathan Toews. There's Toews finding Nyquist, and there's Nyquist roofing a shot for his first goal in more than 40 games. So, and then too, you have to give credit to the Jets defense corps, already without Pionk, Morrissey, Colin Miller, now without Stanley and Luke Shen. There's Ville Heinola running the top power play unit, Sean. There's Hayden Fleury playing big minutes. There's Elias Solomonson doing a great job. I'm going to include them in the second part, even though the defense corps wasn't heavily involved in the offense, but they were heavily involved in the game. That's for sure.
Great line here by T. Will, who says, Renny, say something nice about Ville Heinola, you coward. The segment hath returned. Say something nice about Ville Heinola. Now, here's the deal. There's going to be a whole bunch of people who have been waiting to say this for a long time. They threw a bunch of youth into the lineup. The Winnipeg Jets win a game. They win a game against the top Eastern team. And this is all the proof that people need that this is what the Jets needed all along, was just youth. Throw them into the lineup. Everything is going to be fine. They're going to play ironclad, and they're just going to go running. But I guess it leads you to the question, or leads me to the question for you, Ken. How much of what we saw tonight with the Winnipeg Jets playing fast as we've seen them play before, how much of that had to do with the youth injection that we saw in the lineup tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I mean, this is not 2020 vision again. I mean, I've been saying on the show, Sean, I mean, I want to see Walker Duehr. And again, I'm not saying Walker Duehr is the reason for the massive turnaround. What I'm saying is you notice Walker Duehr because of his speed and tenacious play. But you also noticed today Tanner Pearson, who isn't one of the faster players make a big impact on the game. A couple helpers for Tanner Pearson. And that's why I've been saying Tanner Pearson's a guy that will have value to contending teams because he can show up in big games, even though he's not a burner. So, yeah, I mean, does it help? Sure, at times. But again, I don't think that. Again, Ville Heinola, nice job helping out on the power play, but I don't think Ville Heinola was the driving force in this game. Though, I mean, he did a nice job with being given an enhanced role. Isaac Phillips, Sean, 16 shifts for 12:02, 2 hits in the game. So he did a nice job, coming in at the last minute. So, I mean, that's important for a guy coming in, not just out of the press box. He was down in the minors earlier today. So good job by him to be ready and be injected right into the lineup. But again, I mean, the Jets did it with most of their normal forwards, Sean. It just, they were able to, produce a little bit more. So I don't think it was a big factor. That's my counter.
If people were just listening to something outside their window or outside the door, that was the slow clap that I just started citywide, across the city, for T. Will, who
comment
says
notice, buddy.
He was
comment
right
notice.
all along. Slow clap for T. Will. T. Will says, I was right all along, and this is all the proof that he needs. So take the slow clap that you're hearing across the entire city. Just like, you know what? The only thing that has the city taken care of all around the city better than that slow clap, that would be Myers Drugs, who, of course, delivers everywhere around the city. So if you have any pharmaceutical needs, if you have any health food or supplemental needs, they will come to you, just like that slow clap came to T. Will from across the entirety of the Kenny Renny universe out there, because there's no debate. The debate is over. It is won. The dragon is slain. T. Will was right. All hail Ville Heinola on this night.
No, I know that you're being facetious, but T. Will.
Am I?
T. Will is getting the Pristine Roofing wake up call.
Wow. Okay. Yep. Look at that.
Not in a negative way, but
this just went to. Well, I was going to say we could tinge it negative. But regardless, this may have gone from the best night of T. Will's life quickly to wake up territory. How did things change fast in the Kenny and Renny universe? But you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake up call. You will be glad you did. Just like T. Will is happy that Kenny gave him the Pristine Roofing wake up call, because he says it's not a negative one. It's a good one. It's maybe it's the stories. Maybe it's the friends we made along the way. You know what I mean? Maybe it's the Pristine Roofing wake up call that is the positive one that kind of changes the outlook on life here. Regardless, let's get back to that top line then and the performance that we saw. The one thing that I'm always kind of fascinated by is there's a couple players on that team that make Team Canada before Mark Scheifele does. Braden Point is one of them. Let's be honest, Cirelli was one of them. Brandon Hagel was one of them. If I haven't brought it into the Kenny and Renny overt universe before this, you know that I've had this conversation with you for a long time. There's not a player in the league that I see more often that I don't understand what the whole thing is about that player, Brandon Hagel. Now, I'm not going to criticize Team Canada and how they built their roster. They smoked the U.S. in that game, an empty net goal. They win. Like, it's hard for you to look at Doug Armstrong and be like, wow, you didn't have what you needed there, when they absolutely kind of manhandled the States. I know they didn't win the game, but it's harder to be more dominant than they were in that game. But the one thing that I kept sending you texts the entire time, I didn't like Brandon Hagel's ability to get the puck out of his zone in that tournament. I saw the same thing tonight. I don't want to get to be too much of a Brandon Hagel hater, and I don't want to be that guy who sounds like a homer saying Mark Scheifele should have been there instead of that guy, because there's other guys who should have been part of that conversation. Connor Bedard could be part of that conversation. On and on we could go. But I will say this unequivocally, I don't think there is a question in my mind that Mark Scheifele couldn't have been more effective at that tournament than Brandon Hagel was at that tournament. I kind of think the fact that Nathan MacKinnon couldn't really get off the ground, I know he was struggling with things and a little bit injured, but they basically needed to move him up with Connor McDavid for him to be effective. And one of the things I would point to is Brandon Hagel stayed consistently on that second line on the wing and was like, the second line did not get going. And you take a look at it. I know that they score with with Suzuki, who moves up into that spot at some point. But you needed more. The conversation that we keep having about Canada becoming a one-line team should be an indictment on the second scoring line, right? And one of the most consistent parts of that was Brandon Hagel. It brings me back to the idea that there's three players on that Tampa Bay Lightning team, and it's not including Kucherov, one of the better players in the league, and I think third in scoring in the NHL right now. But three players on that team who were deemed better to be on that team than Mark Scheifele. I found it fascinating on a night like tonight that where their stars were trying to shine, it was the Jets stars that shone and very clearly outshone the stars of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Ken.
Yeah, I mean, they were excellent. I mean, we always have these conversations, and the timing is not always everything. I mean, before the game, I was asking John Cooper about Nikita Kucherov's Hart Trophy candidacy, and in the game against Winnipeg, when he had 3 points in Tampa, it was a slam dunk, exclamation point. And in this game, I barely noticed him after the first 2 or 3 shifts. So
he was kept on the periphery the entirety of the night.
Yeah. Not involved. I mean, Cirelli, didn't notice Cirelli much. You noticed Braden Point because he had the goal, but I mean, Gensel, a couple really nice plays, but I mean, the Jets kept that line under wraps. And in this game, again, this is going to sound wild because he's nowhere near the status of the players that we've been mentioning here. But not having Dominic James, I think, Sean, was a huge factor for the Lightning. And I'm not using it as an excuse. Dominic James was everywhere in that game against the Jets in Tampa. He's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks, maybe longer. This is a guy who was absolutely skating and involved all over the place. And again, he's not available. But I just thought that there were a bunch of guys for the Lightning that were, kind of mostly invisible, Sean, to be frank. And I mean, that's kind of rare. And as mentioned, Darren Radish has been great, but he had a bad turnover in the game. I mean, Victor Hedman wasn't as involved as we're used to seeing. Again, we know he's coming back from injury, but
talking about bad giveaways, he gave up a bad giveaway. It didn't end up in the back of the Jets net,
right,
but it ended up in maybe the best scoring chance of the game for the Jets.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, so credit to the Jets' top players, Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele continuing to make magic together. I mean, we'll get into the joke Mark Scheifele made in his post game, but it wasn't a joke, but his great answer to the question about the offside. But I mean, Alex Iafallo, we talked about it, Sean. I mean, the top line got split up to provide more balance, and there's Alex Iafallo with 2 assists in the game. That's what you need to do if you get a promotion like that. So, impressive job overall. Scheifele's just been playing at, another level lately. Sean, we know there were some long shifts the other night, but Scheifele was 1 and 2 for 3 the other night, and today he's 1 and 1 for 2, and he's up to 75 points. I mean, you and I discussed he's probably going for north of 90. Not sure if he'll hit 100, but he's still keeping that 100-point, projection in play here, which is incredibly impressive.
Okay, let's kind of try and real time this here. So Mark Ald is already talking about it. Rosen suggesting that Rosen is right. NHL ready. So we're hearing in a bunch of different places that the return for Logan Stanley and Luke Schenn is 22-year-old Isaac Rosen. Jacob Bryson, who's I believe 28 years old, and then a second round pick. If that is what we're looking at here, Ken, what is your response? What is your take on this return?
Right. And like I said, if it is a second, it's got to be a 27 or 28 second because they don't have a second rounder this year.
They don't have one coming up this year. Yeah.
So to me, again, I don't know enough about Rosen. I'm doing some quick research there, but we thought from the beginning that it would be more likely that it would be a second round pick. rather than a first. Of course, the Jets would be aiming for a first, but to me, a second round pick, I think is, I mean, again, if I told you last year, Sean, before Logan Stanley's breakout year, that the Jets were going to get a second round pick, you would have said that was pretty good value. So
For sure.
wouldn't you? I mean, most people were ready to run him out of town last year. So
Back then it would have been.
Yeah. I mean, I never saw anyone think that it was going to be a lock that he was going to get a second round pick back. We know that the prices have been high. Quickly on Rosen. Rosen is a left-handed shooting right winger, can play left side, I'm sure. Swedish winger, 22 years old, 6 feet, 185, 14th overall pick in the 2021 NHL draft. He has 31 NHL games, 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points. Pretty good numbers. He's got 2 50-point seasons in Rochester of the American Hockey League. This year, Sean, this is third year in a row, 20-plus goals season, 25 goals, 18 assists, 43 points in 37 games in Rochester. So looks like a pretty skilled guy. Again, we're gonna talk more about him as the week goes on. But I mean, he looks like the centerpiece of the deal as a first round pick in the upper half of the draft. So looks like a player with player with upside. This is a middle six type forward, probably projects to be a second line winger at the NHL level eventually here.
So Ken, does this deal have Zinger, Craig Heisinger written all over it?
Well, I mean, I think that the Jets pay very close attention. I think Rochester's a team that they would have a pretty good handle on. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that they would have their pro scouts would have to be kind of in unison here in terms of liking a player enough that they make him the centerpiece of the deal. Because it's hard to say a second round pick is a centerpiece of a deal for a guy that was chosen 18th overall, right?
Taken 14th overall by Buffalo in 2000.
I meant Stanley. So, Stanley being an 18th overall pick.
22nd overall? I thought he was 22nd overall. Anyways, regardless, I would say it like this. So, okay, on paper, if we're looking at this, you brought in Shen and you gave up a second for it. Now you're getting the second back. So let's say that you basically turned a second into a second. And now what you're doing is you're turning Logan Stanley into Isaac Rosen. And who is the other player here that we were looking at?
Jacob Bryson is a pending UFA, it looks like. So I think that's more of a, take him to the end of the season. And then maybe it's like Drew Stafford. If you see value, you try to sign him. If not, it's just a guy that can help your back end, given all the injuries and the setback to Colin Miller that will keep him in a week-to-week scenario here.
So what it gives you is a restart. Like on paper, they turned, like you said, I thought that but yeah, you may be right. Logan Stanley's either a late teens or early 20s draft pick back in 2016. And now they've got a guy who is just outside the top 10 or a 14th overall pick from the 2021 draft. So you just gained yourself about 5 years in that transfer right there. Now, for people who get into the, not all first rounds are created equal. This is an interesting one. The 2021, that's the Owen Power year. And there's, definitely players that come out of this. Simon Edvinsson is just coming into his own out of this draft in Detroit. He's going to be really special. So that's one of those ones. Brant Clark, another guy from Los Angeles who's just kind of coming into his own. Dylan Gunther's getting paid really big in Utah. Some of the other guys, that was the Chaz Lucius draft for the Winnipeg Jets. Other guys, it is filled with a lot of guys who have had a hard time making the transition out of that draft. One of them a Winnipegger and Carson Lambos, Xavier Bourgault's another guy. But I guess what we're saying here is patience would have to be a virtue in this draft, because even like the second overall pick, Matty Beniers, had a really good start and then has kind of tailed off. The third overall pick is Mason McTavish, who hasn't come along the way that Anaheim had hoped that he would come along. Even a guy like Kent Johnson playing pretty good hockey, but maybe isn't breaking through the way they wanted him to. But this is one of those drafts where it's going to take a little bit of patience. So maybe that works out with Isaac Rosen. His numbers at the NHL level, not impressive. 31 games, he's got 8 points. Even if you're taking a look at his numbers at the AHL level, it's 61 games played, 55 points this year in Rochester, 37 games played, 43 points. This is the Winnipeg Jets, who have shown with Logan Stanley that they've got a lot of time and a lot of patience for that player to come around. They can do the same thing all over again, except they've got 5 years time here. So to me, to your point, Ken, like I look at this and I think this is one of those, Craig Heisinger was a secret weapon for years for the Vancouver Canucks. And same deal for the Winnipeg Jets. This is one of those things where, your AHL guys are looking and saying, we're going to try and find that guy that's ready to turn now. Because it's a 2021 draft and it's 4 years ago, a lot of people think if you haven't hit by now, this is a problem. His numbers at the AHL level say that there's something there. His numbers at the NHL level say this is a guy that can't get off the ground. What you're doing if you're the Winnipeg Jets is you're saying, we think we can bring him in. We think we can turn him in our style. We think we can bring him into the NHL in our style. And we think that we can find something that the Buffalo Sabres have not been able to bring in so far. And let's be honest, the Buffalo Sabres have had a lot of guys that they've tried to bring in and lost. So this is one of these, let's bet on our organization and the way that we develop players. And I know that there's a lot of people right now, as I say this, who are scoffing, and they're going to remind me of the Winnipeg Jets lack of ability to draft guys and bring them along to the NHL level. Ville Heinola is like kind of a perfect example of that. But if you're giving up on Logan Stanley, this at least gives you that possibility to say, let's give it a try. Put it this way. The Winnipeg Jets are probably far better off getting back to the draft and develop model and saying, we're going to see if we can take this guy and turn him into a Winnipeg Jet in the Winnipeg Jet style. We used to do it, and we used to do it fairly consistently. Let's get back to that. At least this signals that idea for the Winnipeg Jets and kind of gets away from what we've seen in the past, where they're bringing in guys, giving away young assets and saying, let's make it happen right now. This to me is at least an understanding of the organization of what they need to do in the future to kind of get back to what's given them success in the past, because the constant purchasing for today, but mid-range guys, the Niederreiters, the Nemesnikovs, so on and so forth, the Shens, all those kind of players, it hasn't got the Jets over the hump in the playoffs like they'd like. So this to me is maybe, just maybe, Ken, and I'm coming to this realization in real time, but a signal of we're going to start changing the direction of this organization. And to me, it needs to be seen. It's good, because one thing I was thinking was going to happen with the Winnipeg Jets here is you were going to see above them the Nashville Predators moving on from guys and making deals and doing these kind of things, and all these teams around them. The Winnipeg Jets, I feel what's happened in the past is the room has been like, we're going to keep pushing and we're going to make the playoffs. And what's happened, if you think of the Andrew Kopp year, Ken, where they could have like sold and moved on some other guys, they moved Kopp because they had to. But in that same year when they were going to miss the playoffs, we talked about it in this podcast. I told you they were going to miss the playoffs. They missed the playoffs, but the Winnipeg Jets tried to buy and sell at the same time. If you remember that, I think it was Zach Sanford that they brought in. And that to me just showed this, what are we doing here? Like, pick a lane, like you can't be everything all at once. This signals to me that, hey, yes, we love it in our room. We love that those guys aren't giving up. We're leaving that to the room. We're leaving it to the coach who comes on the podium and says, we're still trying to make the playoffs. We're still making the push. I like that. I've said in the past, I think it's a superpower of the Winnipeg Jets that they have that attitude, that they're going to keep pushing. But that doesn't, I don't think it's a disconnect for the GM to say, that's great that you guys are doing that. We're still going to sell these guys. Keep doing it. We still believe that you can do that, but it doesn't have to be, well, those guys earned it. Let's keep everybody around. Sometimes there's just right moves to be made. You got to sell at some point. You got to sell on certain players. I said it. I think this proves what I'd said at the beginning. Logan Stanley was not coming back. So you need to move him to get something back from him. If you don't, it's disastrous. They didn't let it get to that. They've signaled that there's a future that they're looking towards. All in all, I think that this is a good day for Winnipeg Jets fans who want to see the mindset of the organization shift in a little bit of a different direction, Ken.
Yeah, excellent job. I just need you to carry it for one more minute. I just got to file this here quickly. Sean, we do have all
well, I'll go and I'll hop into do your thing there. I'll just talk about...
you do a quick read, but I just want to say here, the Jets are also getting a 4th-round draft pick in 26. That will be the better of Buffalo or Edmonton's. The Jets will also retain 50% of Luke Schen's $2.75 million deal. So confirmed deal, Rosen Bryson, 2027 second and a 2026 fourth. The Jets will retain 50% on Luke Schenn.
Okay, there you go. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is where the Buffalo Sabres find themselves. Okay, so if you're Buffalo, and especially if you're trading picks, you're doing so on the belief that things have turned now, right? The Buffalo Bills feel like it's finally happened. Buffalo Sabres feel like it's finally happened for them. If you take a look in the standings, I believe they're tied. I believe they're tied in points with the Tampa Bay Lightning right now. They've played a few extra games, but yes, there they both are at 80 points. Buffalo's been waiting for this to happen for years. If you're looking at them now, I can say this, but we see this all the time where you think that a team has turned and this is the future for them, and then the very next year they fall off. But the Buffalo Sabres have all the signs of a team that are young and up and coming. And if they're in a position right now where they're finding themselves near the top of, okay, I've got them second right now in the Atlantic. If we take a look at where they sit right now in the league, they're 6th overall in the league, which means a 2nd-round pick for the Buffalo Sabres if you can kind of maintain this style of play over the next couple of years. If you feel that you've arrived, if you feel that this is where you belong now, you're looking at that 2nd-round pick for the Winnipeg Jets to be in the 50s or something like that. You're looking for that 4th-round pick to be, around 100 or 110 or something like that. So it makes sense for them to make that kind of move. But if you're Winnipeg, you got to start giving yourself some picks that you can at least, I'm not ruling out, and we'll get to this because it's the next show. I'm going to unveil what I think the Jets should do based on a plan going forward. This doesn't change anything for me. But if you're the Jets and at some point you're thinking, well, our window is now, even though I'm talking about their philosophy shifting, you need picks in order to try and achieve right now players if they decide at some point that they want to go back to picking up right now players. So if they do that, they need picks, and this is one way that you grab those things. Before Ken jumps back into the show here, I just wanted to talk about Nyquist. It was going to happen sooner or later. He gets that goal. The significance of it, it's an important goal at that time of the game. I didn't touch on it. Ken did, but just the depth and the way that they played tonight. Like here's the thing. The Tampa Bay Lightning's depth got handily worked by the Winnipeg Jets depth on this night. Now, I talked about the Jets upper echelon players outdoing the upper echelon players of the Tampa Bay Lightning. But to me, this game was really won with the depth of the organization. Tanner Pearson having a really, really great night. Nyquist, getting that goal kind of signified that, almost like, it's funny, game 61, but the arrival of the depth. And Ken had talked about it. We've talked about that top line being great all year. If they'd been great all year and you would have got some contributions from the depth like this would have been a different team. This is what more and more games would have looked like. But that said, the thing that impressed me most, and it's what I asked my questions about, was the response by the crowd to Nyquist scoring that goal. I thought was huge. If you were in that building, if you heard the cheers over that, I think that says something, because this is a player right now. There could have been, and there's a lot of buildings out there that there would have been a real Bronx cheer. And I don't know what it is about fans, Ken, but the Bronx cheer can be a very loud cheer, but you know what it is. I
Yeah,
don't know how to
agreed.
describe the sound of a Bronx cheer, but that wasn't it. This was an audience trying to give as much support as they possibly could to Gus Nyquist. Now, I know this year hasn't gone well for Gus Nyquist. I still think that this is going to be the last year that we see Gus Nyquist in the NHL. I think he's going to return to Sweden after this. But the one thing that I think he would walk away from is he wouldn't walk away and talk about his time in Winnipeg disparagingly about the fan base, because this is Mark Scheifele called it intelligent knowledge from the fans to cheer him the way that they did, just because it's like, this isn't beating down on a player. This is the Winnipeg Jets audience showing that they're going to be there to support. They know that this has been a nightmare for Gus Nyquist, and they're there to say, in this really, really tough moment, we're going to pick you up as you come out here and you finally score for the Winnipeg Jets. I'm going to tell you this. It was hard. It was hard for Gus Nyquist to score for the Winnipeg Jets. Clearly, it wouldn't be hard for you, though, to score a great rate with Cambrian Credit Union. Getting a mortgage doesn't have to throw you off your game. While you focus on home sweet home, our friends at Team Cambrian Credit Union take care of the mortgage part with their low rates. Whether you're looking for a new home, renewing, or making the switch, Cambrian is your mortgage MVP. They can help make the next season of your mortgage path easier and help save you money. Now, that's what we call a win. Head to cambrian.mb.ca/rates for more. Ken, I don't know how busy you are. Are you too busy to give Sweet Lou a shout out?
No, sir. Yeah, got it under control here. Got her filed to the web here. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact Lou Ferlin at Roll LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
So, Ken, let's dovetail this into the hashtag, the keg save of the game here. I want to talk a little bit about Connor Hellebuyck, the kind of night he had tonight. Now, I don't know how many people would have heard it, but he went on the podcast with the Tkachuk brothers. Thought there were some interesting conversations that happened there. But one thing that he talked about was how that team made it so that he could see every shot, and that he had a real good understanding and expectation of where the shots were coming from with that team. We had this conversation on this podcast. I talked about it last year. I said that about the success that he had with the Winnipeg Jets as they played last year. Connor Hellebuyck saw everything, and he had a good understanding of where things were going to be going. What's happened this year, and we talked about it, is, a lot of the numbers show it. A lot of tipped in goals and a lot of blocked, screen shots that he's faced this year. I think, Ken, if you had a look at it tonight, there were zero instances of Connor Hellebuyck not being screened. I think he may have had to have faced a tip shot here or there, but it wasn't a lot. As good as the Winnipeg Jets were, they were really good at eliminating the stuff that has really crippled Connor Hellebuyck so far this year. I thought tonight was a real good example of what Connor Hellebuyck looks like when he's a goaltender who gets to see the puck and is playing behind a structured system. We've talked about this in the past, and I've said this before. The first Vezina Trophy that he won, I thought he basically carried a defensively deficient Winnipeg Jets team. I don't think he's that kind of goaltender anymore, but I think he is one of the best goaltenders, not just in the league, but potentially of in the history of the game, of playing behind a really structured defense that allows him to see the puck and allows him to know where the puck is going to go. I think he's one of the best that the game has ever seen at, when things are clear for him, you can make that cross ice pass, and it's gonna lead to what my selection is for the hashtag keg save of the game. But when there are options out there, if you clean things up and Connor Hellebuyck can see the options that the opposition has. A, if he sees the shot, he's typically going to stop the shot. But B, if he sees the options that are out there, he's like the Terminator, analyzing the different options. And the reason why he's able to get over and stop a lot of pucks is because he's seeing an option that a lot of guys do not see. So when a pass starts heading in a direction, he knows that puck is going over to Brandon Hagel. And so he knows where to move for that. So to me, one of the best things that the Winnipeg Jets did here tonight is they took away the problematic shots that Connor Hellebuck has really struggled with this year, and they allowed him to be that kind of goaltender that he got to be behind the Team USA team at the Olympics, behind the team that the Winnipeg Jets were last year. And we know how good Connor Hellebuck is when he gets to play behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Jets did a great job, as you mentioned, keeping the sheet pretty clean in front of them. Again, Connor's been mostly dialed since coming out of the break. Yes, strange third period against Anaheim, but overall, there have been moments where he looks like he's at his best right now. And again, we expected confidence has never been in a short supply for Connor Hellebuck, and that's important for a goalie. We know this, but he seems to be playing with even more confidence, and that's what you would expect after winning a gold medal at the Olympics. So, he's been playing great. I think he's been doing a really nice job in the games that he's starting. Sean, I think that again, we know the Jets are in tough situation, being 7 out of the last spot. But this is fifth start in a row. I think we're going to see Eric Comrie, and I'm not trying to derail the conversation. I think we're going to see Eric Comrie against the Canucks, but we'll see in time. But yeah, Hellebuck's been doing an excellent job, and as you mentioned, I mean, when he can see it, generally he can stop it. His ability to read the play is, I'm going to say unmatched. I mean, some folks may not agree. I mean, Vasilevsky had some moments where he was exceptional in this game as well. But, we've been talking a lot about, Hellebuck's numbers, and they don't always tell the whole story. But today, 963 told a pretty big story in a elite matchup against Sean Vasilevsky's. If he's not the front runner, he's one of the best candidates to win the Vezina this year. So we know Connor Hellebuck loves going up against, even though he doesn't like talking about it, he likes going up against guys that are also considered, by some people as best in the world. So he's been doing a great job. So I'm with you 100%. I haven't had a chance to hear the Tkachuks. I'd like your thoughts, a few more thoughts on the pod, but quickly, for the scouting reports, good skill and good speed combination and a great shot is what I'm hearing about Rosen here. So
yeah. I mean, it's I figure people.
Sorry, I want a slight pushback. Again, I'm not arguing with you. I just think that 3 20-plus goal seasons at 20, 21, and 22 is pretty good considering the youth. For a guy coming over playing in North America at 19 years old, I think his numbers actually at the American League Hockey level, given his age, I think have been pretty good.
Well, if you were listening to what I said his numbers at the AHL level speak of a guy who's got a lot of potential. His numbers at the NHL level speak of a guy who hasn't been able to get off the ground at the NHL level.
Yeah, no, I heard that part too, but I mean, he's only
22 years old. I just think people get a little bit too used to when we think of guys graduating to the NHL, we just always go to the top of the list. We go to the Bedards, we go to the Macklin Celebrinis. We see guys doing it so young. We go to the Beckett Seneke guys and stuff like that. And then what you realize is the vast majority of the guys come into the league and they're not really hitting until around 22 or 23. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Winnipeg Jets think is going to happen here. But if they took Logan Stanley after all those years and turn him into a guy who potentially has this is what the Winnipeg Jets have been missing, is depth in offense for a really long time. Yep. Okay. The one thing that it looks like they'll try and carry going forward now with the defense that they have is listen, the Winnipeg Jets have spent a lot of time getting basically replacement level players and stacking them up and up and up on the back end. And they believe that they can get by like that. Time to start using your assets to try and add some scoring, because clearly this year, one of the major problems with the Winnipeg Jets is they've become a one-line team. They need more than that. So to turn Logan Stanley into a potential guy, we'll see if he can turn. He hasn't been able to do it before this. And that will remain the question until he does. But they've got a guy now that they can take a waiver on. And they've got a guy at the AHL level who outside of Brad Lambert's first year in the AHL, they've been missing in their system a guy who's been able to turn over offense the way that this player is doing at the AHL level. We
Right
should
on.
get to the save of the game. I'm going to go like this to the point that you're talking about the anticipation. Someone touched on it earlier on, but it's a nice play that is made. I think towards the end of the second period, it's a 3-on-2, but the way it works is two guys get on the other side of the two defenders and it gets through. It becomes a 2-on-0, and this is just exactly what I'm talking about. The guy gets the pass, and as soon as he's got the ability to shoot, Connor Hellebuck is there. But as soon as he passes, Connor Hellebuck is essentially pushing at the same time, and it's over to Braden Point, and it's not even close. He's got it shut right off, and it's not exactly the same thing. It's a little bit more of a different situation. There's a little bit more spread there, but the pass to Mark Scheifele that ends up in the back of the net, Vasilevsky, it's a similar play, right? It gets past Vasilevsky. It doesn't get past Connor Hellebuck. One of the reasons the Winnipeg Jets win this game, and that's my hashtag the keg save of the game. You got one, Ken?
I thought just a couple others to point out. I think I agree with you. I think that two stood out to me, and one especially for Hellebuck because of the situation and circumstance, and because the Lightning have been struggling. Sean, I thought that the save off Jake Gensel, another good read. I thought the shorthanded chance by Gensel early in the game was one that I liked. Vasilevsky had an unbelievable save, I think, on the backdoor play there too. But I like the one that you mentioned from Hellebuck.
Okay. All right. Anyways, that is our hashtag the keg saves of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, though. Matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the keg saves of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the three fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last show, that would be Sunny Side Up 9268. Sunnyside, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the three fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. Ken, I don't know who it was recently, but they said to me that they were on a mission. They were going to go and try their best to find the best keg in the city of Winnipeg. Okay. And I said, you are just going to end up running in circles for the rest of your life and be like, well, this one is the best one I've been to. It's better than the last one, but then you'll go to the next one and find it's a never ending circle. It's a time warp. Don't listen, go try it out. But by God, just be very careful. There's a lot of cosmic power in that pursuit that you're looking for. You got to be careful with it. Ken, the Johnson Group got you covered. Play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, you know what? There were a few of these, and this will be a shock to no one. I think that Dylan DeMello extended his record, Sean, with the one where he laid out and blocked the pass. No?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the one that I think was the winner.
Yeah. Hey, I'll go with it as well. It's we like the Johnson Group. We're gonna have to talk to them. We've got you covered. We've got you DeMello'd award the way that he's been going here. But I think
T-shirts are going to be printed, I think.
Yes, at some point. And we are going to have to go check your couch for change or something like that. Because at some point we're going to have to give Dylan DeMello something if he keeps winning all this stuff. Anyways, that's our Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? You need to look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Ken, anything to say before we get going here? Hey, just a quick word on the trade deadline tomorrow. Jets hold those two players out. Are they done, or do you expect more?
I'm expecting more. And just quickly, I know that I'm sorry to be disjointed here, but just trying to learn as much as we can. One more comment about Rosen. Talented player, blocked in Buffalo. He'll improve Winnipeg's skill level. And one other thing, when it comes to Swedish forwards, Sean, Alexander Holtz is a right winger who was placed on waivers by the Vegas Golden Knights today. We've talked about Holtz previously. He's a guy who's been linked to the Jets at various points. Because of the injuries to Niederreiter and Nemesnikov, I wouldn't be surprised if they put in a waiver claim for Holtz also. He's a right-handed shot. The Jets do not have a lot of right-handed shooting players in the organization. He has good speed. He's a couple of years removed from a pretty steady year with the New Jersey Devils. I mean, again, hasn't popped for a high first round pick, but for a guy who was chosen, I think, 7th overall in his draft year, I think the Jets might be interested in taking a flyer on him. Again, we'll see at 1 o'clock tomorrow, but I wouldn't be surprised if he, somehow ends up as a waiver claim here. Again, that there are teams below the Jets who might put in a claim as well. Just a couple years removed from a 16-goal season with the Devils, so interested to see if that might be of interest. Quickly, in terms of the rest of the UFAs, I think that we've talked about this a lot, Sean. I think that Stanley was the piece that would probably bring the biggest return.
Yeah.
The return looks pretty steady. In terms of some of the other options, again, I've said this about Tanner Pearson. When we see some of the depth players that are moving around, Sean, in the last day or so, the return has been pretty high on a lot of them. I don't know how high the return would be on Pearson, but again, I've said this a lot. I think Pearson will be of appeal to contending teams as a 12th, 13th forward. I do think that he could be on the move here. Again, we'll see about some of the other guys. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, that would be another guy that I expect that probably could be on the move. But again, it's tough to say, where things are going to fall. What are you expecting?
Well, to your point, like I'm still not ruling out the idea that if there's something out there that the Winnipeg Jets think that they can get better for next year. Like if there's a guy out there who's available for term, I still don't, especially now that you've picked up a player like this, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Jets make a move where they move out parts of their future, potentially parts of their, like, let's remember, Brad Lambert is a guy that's asked for a trade, right? So if there's a team out there that is willing to move guys and they're looking for future assets, Brad Lambert becomes an interesting future asset for a team that's thinking this just isn't working anymore. I still am not ruling out the idea because the Winnipeg Jets, their GM still believes in this core. And even if it doesn't happen this year, which I've said it time and again, it's not happening, but there's going to be a push to try and bounce back next year. And in order to do that, you got to get guys when you can get them. So now that you've brought this in, I could see a scenario, Ken, where Kevin Cheveldayoff says, listen, we picked up a second rounder. We picked up this player that we think has really a lot of potential. We fast track him to one of the best young players and assets that we think is ready to make the turn and go to the NHL. So in our mind, we thought we brought a young player in, and we moved the guy out. We moved out Brad Lambert, but we got a guy that we actually are higher on than Brad Lambert, and we're waiting for him to turn. And in the process, we moved Brad Lambert and brought in a guy now who's got term, who we think we can play on our second line and start addressing the second line scoring for next year. And now all of a sudden next year you go into the season, and if you've picked up a guy who's got term, and if you bring up a player like this to maybe play on the second line and see if you could turn it, maybe you start manufacturing the secondary scoring that this team needs to get to where it wants to go, and then capitalize on the window that exists with the core and the nucleus that you have with this team. Because again, Kevin Cheveldayoff still believes in it, but if he believes in it, there's a finite amount of time where this is going to work. And I'd say it's a 3 to 4 year window at best, because not only is it, you can say whatever you want, that Mark Scheifele is going to be a great player until he's 38 and look great that entire time. Well, is that going to happen with Connor Hellebuck, who's the same age? Is that going to happen with Adam Lowry, who's the same age? Like, there's too many questions when it comes to age to consider much outside of the 3 year window, which means things need to happen now. So, Ken, I could see a scenario where I just talked about the Andrew Kopp thing, where they both bought and sold. I could see that happening. If the right thing is out there, I could see this little bit of a shell game where they bring in a guy, They bring in this new prospect out of Buffalo. They move out a prospect and say, you know what, it just wasn't happening here with this prospect in Winnipeg. So we turned him into something right now that gives us a little bit of a push towards the end of the season, but is there and ready to go next year to address some of the problems that we had this year. So I could see Kevin Cheveldayoff trying to get creative in that respect. Regardless, you can check it out in Ken's writings tomorrow. You can check it out on Sportsnet as we will be going
have good
live,
hits, buddy.
All day to kind of talk about everything that's happening. And then after that, we're going to have Hockey Night in Canada coming up. The Jets taking on the Canucks. That's a team that could be interesting by, well, we already saw they moved Connor Garland. So it should be a pretty hollowed out Canucks team that the Jets come in and face on Saturday, a less stiff test than the one they had here tonight. Anyways, you'll be able to check it out as Renny will be on the broadcast that night. Anything to say before we go, Ken?
Yeah, just quickly, I wonder if the cap space as a weapon could be in play tomorrow also, Sean. We talked about being buyers and sellers. I mean, again, I'm not saying it has to be a Patrick Laine, but I wonder if the Jets, in an effort to add, they weren't able to get a first-round pick for Logan Stanley, maybe they can add a salary like Laine in order to get a first-round sweetener. Do you think that might be on the table? Not necessarily for Laine. I just mean someone take on a bad contract.
So
get a draft pick.
That's exactly what the Jets should be looking for, and potential for. I mean, I've said this in the past. You go back to Stastny coming back. The Jets have always done a good job of weaponizing their cap space to pick up players that they believe in, and salary dumps for other teams. The Jets are going to need to add, and I'm telling you this year because I don't expect Jonathan Toews to return next year. Gus Nyquist is not going to return next year. The Jets are going to have to fill roster spots next year, and they're trying to get better and get back to what they were the previous year. So in order to do that, you're going to have to find a volume of players, but you're going to have to find a volume of players that make you better. So if your opportunities are to do that, like I said, with a Brad Lambert trade or something like that, but even more so, players that other teams are just trying to get out from underneath the contract. We talked about it with Andrew Mangiapane. Clearly that didn't happen, but something like that. It could be that just to add assets, Ken, but I don't go beyond the idea of if a team's just looking to dump a contract that the Winnipeg Jets say, hey, we've got the space. We'll take on that contract because we think that player can help us going forward. So the Jets could actually be a really fascinating. It could be one of the more fascinating years. Last year, you were looking for the Jets to add. All they added was Luke Shen. I think people thought they should have been adding a second line center. In retrospect, they probably should have. But it was very kind of one lane what they were looking at. This year, a whole bunch of stuff could happen. Maybe they're done. Maybe they send out more players just to add, another third rounder here or whatever, just to bring in those assets to start stockpiling it. Or maybe they do crazy active things to weaponize that space to try and address the issues that this team has had this year towards next year. Again, there's not a lot of times of the year that the Jets can easily add players. I think this is the easiest time for them to do it. So it would be fascinating to see things. Could be a real fun, real fun day tomorrow. Anyways, that's it for us. Let's shut this down. Before we do, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, we would implore you to appreciate the contributions by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Jim Pattison, Toyota on Regent, Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Ferlin, Pristine Roofing, Flame and Comfort, Myers Drugs, the Johnston Group, and of course, the Keg. Thank you to them, and thank you to all of you. Let's talk to you again on Saturday. Bye-bye.